CBS Health Watch, sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
And by the way, it could go on and on and on and on from there. That's the reduced and shortened. That's the shorter version of the clip. Pfizer's market cap is $300 billion. They have 78,000 employees. And you look at Pfizer stock over the last 5 years, it's a good stock to buy. It's gone up like a rocket ship. It's gone up 70% in the last 5 years. Who would have ever thought it was so lucrative to mandate vaccines? Not to mention BioNTech and AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna. Fauci says, though, that we have to change the definition of what it means to be fully vaccinated. And never are we allowed to ask any of our public health officials about the adverse events. And the question is, why is Denmark and Finland and Sweden banning the Moderna vaccine for all the health issues and we haven't? That's a very simple question that should be asked by any reporter, but instead we just kind of act like it doesn't exist. Just say, yeah, it's okay, just take the vaccine. Play cut 59.
But certainly, if you want to talk about what optimal protection is, I don't think anybody would argue that optimal protection is going to be with a third shot. Whether or not it officially gets changed in the definition, I think that's going to be considered literally on a daily basis. That's always on the table.
Meanwhile, 81% of COVID deaths in the United Kingdom are fully vaccinated individuals. 81%. Daniel Horowitz, who is incredibly wise, has another courageous story out. A couple. Horowitz, it's now clear the leaky vaccine have made the virus worse than ever. Daniel Horowitz goes through piece by piece and point by point, saying that the vaccine, now that we are 1 year out from the first shot being administered, Daniel Horowitz argues it's actually accelerated the spread of the virus. It's kept it alive, Daniel Horowitz argues. He goes through all the data, and he shows that cases in Europe are now 20% higher than any point that they were in 2020 or in the winter wave in 2021. Meanwhile, European Union health statistics show that 81% of all adults 18 plus are vaccinated and 77% fully vaccinated. Did you know hospitalizations in Vermont are the highest they've ever been, despite 99% of seniors being fully vaccinated and 62% having a booster shot? Yet during all the media, no one ever asks Dr. Fauci, this is according to INMSC Twitter account, why does anyone not ask Fauci about why Vermont has its highest hospitalization rate? Daniel Horowitz says, when all the dust settles, mass vaccinations with a leaky injection will likely supplant lockdowns as the worst mistake in the history of human civilization. We got to get Daniel Horowitz back on our show to say that. Meanwhile, an isolated cruise ship with 100% fully vaccinated people, 100% fully vaccinated, they got hit with a serious COVID outbreak. Every single person on board was fully vaccinated on the Norwegian cruise ship. And instead, they're experiencing a major outbreak of the Fauci Chinese coronavirus. The Norwegian breakaway cruise line had everyone fully vaccinated. You'd think that it would be fine. And by the way, they changed the definition of a vaccine. We know that. and yet mass infection. Fauci says on the New York City vaccine mandate, for all of our friends listening on WABC, quite frankly, you have to mandate vaccines when you're in the midst of a historic experience of the worst pandemic of the respiratory disease. Of course, Fauci knows the vaccine is not working for its intended purpose, but he's still pushing it. And yet no one in the media calls him out, of course. Play cut 56.
You know, Francis, no one likes to be mandating for people to do things that they might be hesitant to do. But quite frankly, you have to when you're in the middle of what we call a historic experience of the worst pandemic of a respiratory disease in the last 100 years. We have to put the communal responsibility ahead of individual preferences.
Communal responsibility above individual preferences. You know, if only there was a body of literature or 100 million people that were killed by that sort of line of thinking. The same totalitarian struggle that America participated in the 20th century in many different variations, as Dwight D. Eisenhower predicted, has now manifested itself through the scientific and technological elite. I'm optimistic that some people are waking up. I am frustrated that some people still think the vaccine is the greatest thing ever, and they're not even opening their eyes to any of the data that is out there.